Imagine taking a massive, high-powered drill and plunging it deep into a seemingly ordinary wall of solid ice, expecting nothing but frozen water, only to pull up a perfectly preserved 10,000-year-old piece of human history that completely shatters everything we thought we knew about the American past. We like to think of American history as something written in dusty textbooks, preserved in marble monuments, or locked away in climate-controlled museum vaults. But the most shocking, terrifying, and mind-bending secrets of the American story are not found in buildings. They are locked in a deep, frozen slumber beneath the ice, waiting for the Earth to thaw and reveal their dark realities. From secret nuclear cities buried under the Arctic ice to the tragic frozen remains of American families who resorted to the unthinkable to survive, the permafrost and glaciers of this continent act as nature's ultimate time capsule. What goes into the ice does not decay, it does not rot, and it does not forget. It stays exactly as it was the moment the freezing cold claimed it. Today, we are looking at 5 of the most shocking, chilling, and historically significant things ever found frozen in the ice of American history. And trust me, by the time we get to number 1, you will never look at a snowy landscape the same way again. Welcome to the U.S. Lens. Our journey begins not in the continental United States, but in the hostile, freezing expanse of Greenland, a territory heavily tied to American military history during the darkest days of the Cold War. If you were to fly over the Greenland ice sheet today, you would see nothing but an endless, flat wasteland of blinding white snow and ice stretching to the horizon. But deep beneath that seemingly pristine surface lies a shocking man-made horror story that the United States government tried to keep hidden from the world for decades. In the late 1950s, the threat of Soviet nuclear annihilation was paralyzing the American military. They needed a way to launch nuclear missiles at Russia, but land-based silos in America were too vulnerable to a first strike. So the Pentagon came up with a plan so audacious, so borderline science fiction, that it sounds like a comic book villain's plot. They called it Project Iceworm. The United States Army Corps of Engineers went into the heart of the Greenland ice sheet and literally built a massive, fully functioning underground city called Camp Century. Using giant thermal nuclear-powered tunneling machines, they carved out miles of interconnected trenches beneath the ice, covering them with arched steel roofs and burying them under tons of snow. This wasn't just a few tents. This was a sprawling, subterranean base complete with living quarters, a hospital, a chapel, a library, and even a fully operational nuclear reactor, generating enough power to light a small town. The official cover story given to the American public and the Danish government was that this was a purely scientific Arctic research facility. But the shocking reality, which was only declassified years later, was that Camp Century was a top-secret military testing ground. The goal was to see if they could install 600 nuclear missiles hidden under the ice, connected by a massive railroad system ready to be fired at the Soviet Union at a moment's notice. The ice was supposed to be a permanent, indestructible shield. But the military made a horrific miscalculation about the nature of glaciers. The ice is not a static, solid rock. It is a slow-moving, crushing river of frozen water. The soldiers stationed there lived in a state of constant terror, listening to the agonizing groans of the ice shifting above them, as the tunnels would violently contract and crush inward during the night. Eventually, the shifting ice became too much. The nuclear reactor had to be removed, and the base was abandoned in 1966. Today, as global temperatures rise, the ice sheet is melting, and the terrifying truth of Camp Century is resurfacing. The frozen ground is beginning to expose the toxic waste, radioactive coolant, and thousands of tons of physical infrastructure left behind by the American military, creating an environmental time bomb buried in the ice, a shocking monument to American Cold War paranoia, literally freezing in time. But while the American military was hiding nuclear secrets under the ice has also perfectly preserved some of the darkest, most heartbreaking chapters of ordinary American civilian life. High in the freezing, treacherous peaks of the Sierra Nevada mountains, the ice and snow hold the terrifying secret of the Donner Party, the most infamous tragedy in the history of the American westward expansion. In the spring of 1846, a large wagon train of optimistic American families left the Midwest, lured by the promise of fertile land and a new life in California. They were following the American dream, but poor decisions and a deadly shortcut known as the Hastings Cutoff trapped them in the rugged mountains just as the brutal winter of 1846 descended earlier and fiercer than anyone could have predicted. As the snow piled up to 15 feet deep, the wagons could no longer move. The families built crude log cabins and makeshift tents, hoping to wait out the winter. But the snow kept falling, the temperatures plummeted to 20 degrees below zero, and their food supplies completely vanished. What happened next is so shocking that it remains a dark stain on the American pioneer spirit. Driven to absolute insanity by starvation and freezing cold, the surviving members of the Donner Party resorted to cannibalism. They ate the frozen flesh of their dead relatives and friends just to survive another day in the icy hellscape. When rescue parties finally reached the frozen camps in the spring of 1847, they were met with a scene of unimaginable horror. Modern explorers and archaeologists who have ventured into the high Sierras to find the exact locations of the Donner Party camps have uncovered shocking artifacts frozen in the alpine ice. They have found broken china plates, rusted hunting knives, children's shoes, and most chillingly, scattered, fractured human bones that show unmistakable signs of being chopped and boiled. The ice of the Sierra Nevada acted as a horrific freezer, locking the final, desperate moments of these American pioneers in place. To find a piece of a bone with knife marks on it, sitting in a patch of frozen mud where a starving mother once huddled with her children, is a deeply unsettling experience that brings the raw, unfiltered reality of American history right into your hands. The ice did not just preserve their belongings, it preserved the absolute extreme of human desperation, freezing a moment in time where the civilized veneer of society melted away in the face of freezing death. Moving away from human tragedy and shifting to ancient wonders. The ice has also revealed shocking secrets about America deep before the arrival of Columbus or even the earliest Native American tribes. If you look at the Great Lakes today, specifically Lake Huron, you see a massive expanse of fresh water, but hidden deep beneath the waves, perfectly preserved by the freezing, low-oxygen waters of the lake bottom, is a shocking discovery that rewrites the history of human migration in North America. Around 10,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, the water levels of the Great Lakes were dramatically lower than they are today. Where there is now deep water, there was once a dry, lush land bridge and a sprawling, ancient forest. Underwater archaeologists scanning the floor of Lake Huron were absolutely stunned when their sonar revealed a staggering network of stone structures perfectly aligned across the ancient lake bed. When they sent divers down into the freezing, pitch-black water, they found an ancient hunting complex consisting of parallel rows of carefully placed stones. These were drive lanes, built by prehistoric Paleo-Indians to herd migrating caribou into narrow choke points where they could be easily hunted. The shocking aspect of this frozen and submerged site is its sheer age and incredible preservation. The wooden stakes used to hold the stone lines in place, along with the ancient stone tools dropped by the hunters, have been perfectly preserved in the icy dark waters for nearly 10 millennia. It is a frozen snapshot of a lost world, proving that ancient Americans were highly intelligent, organized builders manipulating their environment on a massive scale thousands of years before agriculture took root. To touch a 10,000-year-old wooden stake, perfectly preserved by the cold depths of an American lake, is to touch the exact moment human beings first mastered this continent. It is a shocking reminder that beneath the familiar landscapes, Of modern America lie entire forgotten civilizations, frozen and waiting to tell their story. As we move closer to modern times, the ice continues to act as a perfect vault for the obsessions and failures of the American industrial age. In the late 1890s, the discovery of gold in the remote, frozen wilderness of the Klondike region of Canada and Alaska sparked one of the most massive, frenzied migrations in human history. Over 100,000 desperate fortune seekers abandoned their lives in the lower 48 states and surged northward into some of the most hostile, freezing territory on Earth. To reach the gold fields, they had to navigate treacherous rivers and mountain passes. When winter hit, the extreme cold instantly froze these mighty rivers solid, creating temporary highways of ice. But the ice was unpredictable, and when spring arrived, the thawing ice shattered the dreams of thousands. Today, the frozen rivers and lakes of Alaska are yielding up shocking, perfectly preserved ghost ships from this chaotic era. Explorers and historians walking the muddy banks after the ice melts have stumbled upon the massive rotting hulls of 19th-century steamboats, trapped and crushed by the shifting ice over a century ago. These are not just broken planks of wood. They are literal time capsules of the gold rush fever. Divers and archaeologists have found these massive ships frozen in the mud, their cargo holds still packed with the abandoned belongings of the miners. They have pulled out frozen cases of untouched 100-year-old whiskey bottles, crates of vintage clothing, mining equipment, and in some rare cases, actual gold dust locked in rusted strongboxes. The most shocking part is the eerie, frozen-in-time atmosphere of these wrecks. You can look through the broken, ice-encrusted windows of a sunken Klondike steamboat and see a frozen china plate still sitting on a table or a pair of boots left on the deck as the panicked crew abandoned ship in the middle of a freezing blizzard. The ice has perfectly suspended these vessels in a state of permanent ghostly decay, serving as a shocking monument to American greed, ambition, and the brutal, unforgiving power of the northern ice. Finally, we arrive at the most ancient and visually shocking discovery of all, a creature that proves just how wildly different the American continent was before human beings ever set foot on it. Deep in the permafrost of interior Alaska, where the ground has been frozen solid for tens of thousands of years, gold miners operating massive hydraulic hoses to thaw the ground made a discovery that stopped them dead in their tracks. In 1979, a miner named Walter Roman was blasting away frozen muck near Fairbanks when his equipment struck something unusually soft in the hard, icy earth. He climbed down into the muddy, freezing trench and realized he was looking at the complete, mummified remains of an animal that had not walked the earth since the Pleistocene epoch. It was a steppe bison, an ancient, massive ancestor of the modern American buffalo, but significantly larger, with horns spanning over 6 feet from tip to tip. The shocking reality of this find was not just that it was old, but the absolutely flawless condition of the animal due to the deep freeze. This bison, affectionately nicknamed Blue Babe by the scientists who studied it, had been frozen so rapidly and so completely that its fur, its skin, its underlying muscles, and even its internal organs were perfectly preserved in the ice for 36,000 years. Scientists could literally see the exact physical characteristics of an American Ice Age giant. They could examine the coarse, dark brown fur that protected it from unimaginable blizzards. They could see the thick, fat layers that insulated it. And most shockingly, by examining the deep, unhealed claw marks on its hindquarters and the bite marks on its skull, they could determine exactly how this massive beast died. It had been attacked and killed by an American lion, a giant predator that weighed nearly 1,000 pounds and is now completely extinct. The bison died, perhaps falling into a freezing pond, and the ice took over instantly, locking it away from decay, bacteria, and time itself. To stand in a laboratory and look at the face of a 36,000-year-old bison, its fur still intact, its eyes long gone but its skin perfectly mummified by the American ice, is a deeply humbling experience. It shatters the illusion that America is a young country. It proves that long before our cities, our highways, and our history, this land was ruled by giant beasts, locked in a brutal, frozen struggle for survival, preserved perfectly by the very ice that killed them. When we look through the U.S. lens at these 5 shocking discoveries, a clear and powerful narrative emerges. The ice of this continent is not just frozen water. It is the ultimate unbiased historian. It does not write stories to make us look good. It does not sugarcoat the dark realities of our past. Whether it is the arrogant, dangerous secrets of a nuclear military base, the tragic frozen bones of starving pioneers, the ancient, submerged hunting grounds of lost civilizations, the ghostly, abandoned ships of gold-crazed miners, or the mummified remnants of Ice Age giants, the ice holds it all in perfect, chilling suspension. As the modern world heats up and these ancient ice vaults begin to rapidly thaw, they are not just releasing water into the oceans, they are releasing the forgotten, shocking truths of American history back into the light. We are living in a unique time where we can physically reach out and touch the past, feeling the freezing cold of centuries radiating from an artifact that was lost to the world until now. The ice is speaking, and what it is telling us about the history of America is darker, older, and far more shocking than we ever could have imagined.